The restaurant was small, a family place on the south side of Chicago, red and white checkered tablecloths, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce, photographs on the walls of the old country, of ancestors who had made the crossing, of a life left behind to build something new. Giuseppe ran it with his wife, Maria. They'd opened it in 1926, with money saved over 15 years. Giuseppe had worked in factories, on construction sites, anywhere that would pay him. Maria had cleaned houses, taken in laundry, done whatever she could. And finally, they had enough. Enough for a lease, enough for tables and chairs, enough for a kitchen and a dream. The restaurant wasn't fancy, but the food was real. Giuseppe's mother's recipes. Maria's careful hands making pasta every morning, sauce that simmered for hours. Bread baked fresh. It was the kind of place where working families came on Sundays, where the food reminded them of home, where Giuseppe knew everyone's name and their children's names and what they liked to eat. It was a good life, honest, hard, but good. And then, on a Tuesday night in March of 1929, Al Capone walked through the door. Giuseppe was in the kitchen when it happened. Maria came back, her face pale, her hands shaking. "He's here," she whispered. Giuseppe didn't need to ask who. Everyone in Chicago knew who he meant. You didn't say the name out loud unless you had to. You just said he, and everyone understood. Giuseppe wiped his hands on his apron and walked out to the dining room. It was late. After 8. Most of the dinner crowd had left. Just 2 tables still occupied. An elderly couple finishing their meal. A young family with 3 small children. And in the corner, at the largest table, sat Al Capone. He wasn't alone. 4 men were with him. Big men in expensive suits. They sat with their backs to the walls, their eyes on the door, their hands resting casually near their jackets where Giuseppe knew the guns were. Capone himself sat in the middle. He was younger than Giuseppe expected. Early 30s. Well-dressed. His suit probably cost more than Giuseppe made in 6 months. He was looking at the menu, though Giuseppe suspected he wasn't really reading it. Giuseppe approached the table slowly. His heart was pounding. Every instinct told him to turn around, to pretend he hadn't seen, to let Maria handle it. But this was his restaurant, his name on the lease, his responsibility. He stopped a few feet from the table. Capone looked up, smiled. It was a pleasant smile, the kind you'd give a waiter at any restaurant in the city. "Good evening," Capone said. "Your wife says the osso buco is excellent tonight." Giuseppe's throat was dry. He forced himself to speak. "I'm sorry, sir. We're closed." The 4 men at the table stopped moving. The pleasant atmosphere in the room changed instantly, like the air before a thunderstorm. Charged, dangerous. Capone's smile didn't change, but his eyes did. They went from pleasant to measuring, calculating. "Closed?" he said. "Your sign says you're open until 9. It's only 8:15. I'm closing early tonight." One of the men started to stand. Capone raised one hand slightly. The man sat back down, but his eyes stayed on Giuseppe, hard, promising things Giuseppe didn't want to think about. "That seems unusual," Capone said. His voice was still calm, still pleasant, turning away customers, turning away money. "In times like these, I'd think a small business owner would welcome anyone who wants to eat." Giuseppe's hands were shaking. He clasped them behind his back so no one would see. "I welcome honest customers." The words came out before he could stop them, before he could think about what they meant, what they would cost. The room went completely silent. The elderly couple at the other table stopped eating. The young family froze. Even the sounds from the kitchen seemed to fade. Capone set down his menu. He leaned back in his chair, studied Giuseppe for a long moment. "Honest customers," he repeated, "I see. And you've determined I'm not honest." I've determined I don't want your business, because you know who I am. Yes, and you know what I do. Everyone knows what you do. Capone nodded slowly. Everyone knows. But most people don't care. Most people see a man with money who wants to eat dinner and they serve him. But not you. Not me. Why? Giuseppe hadn't expected that question. He'd expected threats, expected anger, expected the men at the table to stand up and do what they did to people who disrespected Al Capone. But he didn't expect a question. He answered honestly. Because what else was there to do now? Because I came to this country with nothing. I worked for 15 years to build this place. To build something clean, something my children could be proud of. And I won't dirty it by taking money from violence and crime and suffering. The other diners were watching now. No longer pretending to eat. Just watching. Waiting to see what would happen when you told Al Capone no. Capone was quiet for a long time. His eyes never left Giuseppe's face. Giuseppe forced himself not to look away, not to back down. If he was going to die for this, at least he would die standing. Then Capone smiled again. But this smile was different, softer, almost sad. You remind me of my father, he said quietly. He was a barber, an honest barber. He came here with nothing too. Worked every day of his life. Died young because he worked too hard. And you know what he had to show for it? A small shop in Brooklyn, and enough money to bury him. That's it. That's what honesty got him. That's more than blood money gets anyone, Giuseppe said. One of the men at the table swore under his breath, started to stand again. Capone stopped him with a look. You're brave, Capone said to Giuseppe. Stupid, but brave. You know what I could do to you, to this place, to your family. And you're still standing there telling me to leave. Yes. Why? What's the point? You think refusing to serve me dinner makes you better than the politicians who take my money? The police who look the other way? The businessmen who buy my liquor? You're not better, you're just poorer. Maybe. But I can sleep at night. Capone laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh. It was genuine. Almost admiring. You can sleep at night. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. He stood up. The four men immediately stood with him. Giuseppe's heart stopped. This was it. This was where it ended. In his own restaurant. In front of the last customers of the night. But Capone didn't reach for a gun. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a wallet. A thick wallet. He opened it and pulled out bills. Lots of bills. He counted them carefully. 10 $100 bills. He set them on the table. $1,000, Capone said. That's what I'm leaving you. Giuseppe stared at the money. $1,000. More money than the restaurant made in 3 months. Maybe 4. Enough to pay off the lease. To fix the stove that kept breaking. To buy Maria a new coat. To put something away for their daughter's futures. I can't take that, Giuseppe said. His voice cracked slightly. Sure you can. It's not payment for dinner. I didn't eat. It's not even a tip, since there was no service. Call it a gift, from one immigrant son to another. A gift from dirty money is still dirty. Capone shook his head slowly. You're a stubborn man, Giuseppe. He used the name casually, like they were friends, like he hadn't just been refused service. You know what happens to stubborn men in this city? I can imagine. Can you? Can you really? Capone's voice was still quiet, but there was something underneath it now. Something harder. Let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to walk out of here. You're going to go back to your kitchen and your honest work. And tomorrow, or next week, or next month, someone's going to come by. Not me. Someone else. And they're going to ask you to pay for protection. Because that's how this city works. That's how every city works. Giuseppe didn't respond. He knew it was true. He'd been approached before, had refused before. So far, nothing had happened. But he knew his luck wouldn't hold forever. And when they come, Capone continued, you're going to refuse. Because you're an honest man. And they're going to come back, and eventually something bad is going to happen. A fire, maybe. Or a break-in. Or just a visit from some men who want to make sure you understand how things work. And all your honesty, all your pride, it won't matter. Because they'll take what they want anyway. Or they'll destroy what you've built. Then let them, Giuseppe said. At least I didn't invite them in. Capone studied him for another long moment. Then he did something Giuseppe didn't expect. He picked up the money. All of it. Put it back in his wallet. Except for one bill. $100 bill. He set it on the table and placed a salt shaker on top of it so it wouldn't blow away. This is for them, Capone said. The elderly couple. The young family. I saw them stop eating when I came in. Saw the fear in their faces. This pays for their meals tonight. And next time, they come here. And the time after that. However long it lasts. Before Giuseppe could respond, Capone pulled out a small notepad from his pocket. The kind businessmen carried. He wrote something quickly, tore off the page, and set it next to the $100 bill. Then he walked toward the door. His men followed. At the entrance, Capone stopped and turned back. You're going to regret this, he said. Not as a threat, as a statement of fact. Not because of me. I meant what I said. I'm leaving. But because this city doesn't reward honesty, Giuseppe, it punishes it. And sooner or later, you're going to realize that the only difference between me and the men who'll come after you is that I was willing to pay for what I took. He left. The door closed behind him. The black car parked outside pulled away, and Giuseppe stood there in his restaurant, shaking, wondering if he'd just made the bravest decision of his life or the stupidest. Maria came out from the kitchen. She'd been listening to everything. She walked to the table and picked up the note, read it. Her hand went to her mouth. Giuseppe, she whispered, you need to see this. He took the note. It was written in neat handwriting, not rushed, deliberate. To whoever comes after me, this man and his restaurant are under my protection. Anyone who bothers him answers to me. Ack. Giuseppe read it twice. Then, a third time. He looked at the $100 bill. At the note. At his wife's frightened face. He's protecting us, Maria said. Even though you refused him. Even though you insulted him. He's protecting us. The elderly couple stood up. The old man approached slowly. He looked at Giuseppe with something like awe. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen, he said. Or the most foolish, I'm not sure which. Neither am I, Giuseppe admitted. The young father came over too. His children were behind him, wide-eyed and silent. He left money for us? For our meals? Giuseppe nodded. He felt numb, confused. He'd expected violence, expected punishment, expected to pay for his principles with his life or his livelihood. Instead, he'd gotten this. Protection. A gift. A note that would keep other predators away. From the man he'd refused to serve. The days passed. Then weeks. Giuseppe kept the note. Kept it in the register where he could see it every day. He didn't want to keep it. Didn't want to be in debt to Al Capone. But he kept it anyway. Because Capone had been right. Other men did come. Men representing different gangs. Different organizations. Men who wanted money or goods or just acknowledgement that Giuseppe understood how things worked in Chicago. And each time Giuseppe showed them the note. Each time they read it and left without another word. The restaurant survived. More than survived. It thrived. Word spread about the place Al Capone had tried to eat and been refused. Some people came because they admired Giuseppe's courage. Others came because they were curious. A few came because they hoped to see Capone return. He never did. Giuseppe heard about him, of course. Everyone heard about Capone. The St. Valentine's Day massacre happened 2 weeks after that Tuesday night. 7 men killed. The newspapers screamed about it. The city reeled. Giuseppe read the articles and thought about the man who had sat in his restaurant, who had smiled pleasantly, who had written a note to protect a man who'd insulted him. He didn't know what to feel about that. Still doesn't. Even years later. Because Al Capone was a criminal, a murderer, a man who built an empire on suffering and fear. Giuseppe knew that. Never forgot it. But he was also the man who left protection instead of punishment, who paid for strangers' meals, who respected, in his own strange way, another man's principles even when those principles rejected everything he stood for. In 1931, Giuseppe read that Capone had been convicted. Tax evasion. 11 years in prison. The empire crumbling. The legend fading. He took the note out of the register that day. Looked at it for a long time. Thought about throwing it away. About burning it. About finally being free of the complicated debt he owed to a man he'd never wanted to owe anything to. But he didn't. He put it in a frame instead. Hung it on the wall in his office where customers couldn't see it. But he could. Because it was true. All of it. The protection. The respect. The strange honor between 2 men who lived by completely different codes. Giuseppe died in 1958. The restaurant passed to his daughters. Then to his grandchildren. It's still there today. Still serving the same food. Still carrying the same name. The note is still there too. In the office. Behind the desk. A piece of paper with neat handwriting. And a message that saved a small restaurant from the casual violence of Prohibition-era Chicago. Most people don't know the story. Don't know about the night Al Capone walked in and walked out without eating. Don't know about the $1,000 offered and refused. Don't know about the $100 left for strangers. But the family knows. They passed the story down, along with the recipes and the photographs, and the memory of a man who chose honesty over safety, and somehow survived. Not because he was stronger than Al Capone, but because Capone chose to let him survive, chose to respect the refusal, chose to protect instead of punish. The note sits in its frame, yellowed now, fragile, but still readable. This man and his restaurant are under my protection. A gift from a criminal to an honest man. A shield made of reputation and fear. A kindness wrapped in violence. Giuseppe never knew what to call it. Never knew if accepting the protection made him complicit. Never knew if he should feel grateful or ashamed. He just knew that on a Tuesday night in March of 1929, he stood up to the most dangerous man in Chicago. And instead of destroying him, that man chose to save him. Not for money. Not for loyalty. Not for anything except the strange respect one stubborn man gave to another. The restaurant still stands. The note still hangs. And somewhere in the complicated space between right and wrong, between criminal and protector, between the money refused and the protection accepted, the truth of that night lives. Giuseppe said no to Al Capone, and Capone said yes to Giuseppe. And somehow, impossibly, both men walked away with their principles intact. The $100 bill is long gone, spent on meals for strangers who never knew who paid. But the note remains. A reminder that even in a city built on corruption, even in an era defined by violence, even in a moment when saying no should have meant death, sometimes the world surprises you. Sometimes the monster shows mercy. Sometimes the honest man survives. Sometimes $1,000 refused means more than $100 accepted. And sometimes a note scrawled on paper by a criminal's hand protects what the law never could. A small restaurant, a family dream, a honest life. All because one man refused to serve dinner, and another man respected him for it.